Max Verstappen's got a dirty mouth, but don't worry, Peter Windsor's here to wash it out with soap. After the Dutchman's exhibition of anger, which included a fair number of censored words directed at Gianpiero Lambiase, Windsor suggests that Formula One should consider implementing a formal code of conduct regarding language and radio communications. Even as Verstappen valiantly battled his way to the forefront of the pack during the United States Grand Prix, he was contending with the brake issue. He didn't hesitate to inform Lambiase of this challenge. He said, "Mate, these brakes are so compared to yesterday. What a piece of I know, man, my brakes are just Verstappen, who was growing increasingly frustrated with the timing of specific radio messages during braking zones, wasn't the only person using colorful language over the course of the weekend in Austin. Charles Leclerc didn't hold back in expressing his frustration, often throwing out F-bombs. Yuki Tsunoda, in his signature style, also exclaimed with a "what the fuck man" on both Friday and Saturday. Even Nico Hülkenberg, Lance Stroll, and Lewis Hamilton had their words bleeped out by the FOM broadcaster. The situation has prompted former Ferrari team manager Peter Windsor to advocate for the introduction of a code of conduct in Formula One. He emphasized that the sport is actively seeking to engage a younger audience, as he mentioned in his recent YouTube stream. Interestingly, he was getting very irate on the radio. I felt a bit sorry for Gianpiero, his race engineer. He managed to choose virtually every time he said something to Max, which was usually sort of gaps to Lewis or whatever it was. He chose a braking area when Max was absolutely focused on doing something that he doesn't normally do, and trying to get it absolutely right. You get the radio when they say, "Oh, you know, you're 4.5 seconds ahead of Lewis," and he said, "Don't talk to me while I'm braking." He was actually deleted at one point when he was talking about the brakes. "Max, you're the triple world champion. You're not allowed to do that." They bleeped it obviously, but lots of young kids watching Formula One these days. I think there should be some sort of code of conduct to do with language, because even young kids today know what a bleep is, don't they? So we don't need any more of that. Windsor puts the blame on Bernie Ecclestone and Ralf Schumacher for the prevalent use of strong language over the radio today. According to the former team manager, when Ralf Schumacher, a 6-time Grand Prix winner, first used explicit language over the radio with his team, Ecclestone found it amusing and chose not to address the issue promptly. Windsor said, "Bernie started all that when he allowed Ralf Schumacher to get away with it years ago, when he used the F word for the first time that I'd ever heard on the radio. Bernie thought it was a big laugh and really good for Formula One, and I totally disagreed at the time for the same reason I disagree with it now. I think if you've got young kids and you're trying to get to a young audience, you don't allow that sort of thing. It's not allowed in other sports, and it shouldn't be allowed in Formula One, and they do a good job of deleting it, I know that, but one day it'll slip through." Red Bull hasn't explicitly issued an ultimatum to Sergio Perez, but according to Ted Kravitz, there's a clear understanding that if Perez doesn't secure a second-place finish in the standings, a substantial discussion about his future with the team will be in order. Amid a season riddled with qualifying difficulties and persistent rumors hinting at his potential exit from the grid, Perez is managing to maintain his grasp on the second position in the Drivers' Championship, with a comfortable 39-point lead over Lewis Hamilton. Even though the scrutinized Mexican driver saw his lead decrease by an additional 8 points at the United States Grand Prix when he finished in 5th place while Hamilton claimed 2nd, the subsequent disqualification of the Mercedes driver provided him with some valuable breathing space in the standings. With only 4 races left and Hamilton outpacing Perez in the last 4 races, the Red Bull driver is facing tremendous pressure to secure the coveted 1-2 finish in the standings for the team. This could be a pivotal factor in determining his future with the team. While Helmut Marko has recently emphasized that there is no strict ultimatum for Perez, it doesn't rule out the possibility of serious discussions about his future with the team should he fall short of securing the runner-up position behind Max Verstappen. Kravitz referred to it as a conversation that will likely be necessary. He said, "Now there is a rumor around the place that has it that if Checo does not manage to seal P2 in the Drivers' Championship, which is something that Red Bull Racing have never done and something that Christian Horner and Helmut Marko value very highly this year, then they will have to have a serious think as to whether Checo indeed does stay within his contract for next year, or whether they have a proper conversation with Checo about whether he is actually going to be able to improve for next year. I'm not saying it's an ultimatum, Not saying Checo Perez has got a few races until the end of the season to wrap up the P2 and secure his drive for next year. What I am saying is that Checo was under no illusions as to the importance of P2 in the Drivers' Championship, and if he can just keep getting the results in and pleasing his fans, that will please Red Bull as well, so that's the important thing. The Mexican's 5th place finish in Austin, trailing behind the comparatively slower Ferrari of Carlos Sainz, was also spoken about by Kravitz. He added, "P5 today is solid, but it's not P4 obviously for Carlos Sainz in a slower car in the Ferrari than Max Verstappen's Red Bull." The pit lane reporter also shared his thoughts on the boost directed at Verstappen while he was on the podium, suggesting that the enthusiastic Mexican fanbase at the Circuit of the Americas could be responsible for the vocal reaction. He started his notebook by sharing his intention to dub the United States Grand Prix as the Mexican Grand Prix, because we pretty much got the whole of Mexican support in Formula 1 outside the Red Bull garage. It feels like Checo has got a whole fan club here. Maybe that explains the boost for Max Verstappen on the podium. Maybe not. I don't know. And while we're on the topic of Ted Kravitz, Christian Horner didn't miss an opportunity to have some fun at the expense of the Sky F1 broadcaster during the weekend at the Circuit of the Americas. Kravitz had suggested that Max Verstappen might be grappling with an electrical problem during the sprint shootout on Saturday afternoon. This prompted questions directed at Horner regarding Kravitz's observations during Sky's coverage. When Horner was asked about the possibility of an issue with Verstappen's car, the Red Bull team boss went on to insult Kravitz. He said, "Ted's always talking, usually not out of his mouth." Presenter Simon Lazenby, coming to Kravitz's defense, intervened to say that the comment was unfair. This isn't the first time Kravitz and Sky F1 have managed to butt heads with Red Bull. This time last year, Kravitz insulted Verstappen and the Red Bull team when he said that Lewis Hamilton had been robbed of an 8th world title at the 2021 Abu Dhabi Grand Prix. This situation resulted in Red Bull revoking media privileges from Sky for the Mexico City Grand Prix, with key team members declining to participate in interviews with the broadcaster. Verstappen commented on the situation at the time, saying, "If you keep disrespecting me, I am not tolerating it anymore, and that is why I decided to stop answering." Horner was in agreement with his driver, adding that there were some derogatory comments made, so we took a break from Sky for this race. Max was upset, we were upset, and we made the decision to stand together as a team. It won't have done Sky any harm for us to lay down a marker. Some of the commentary is fair, but some pieces are sensationalist, and saying we robbed anyone of the championship, as was said in Austin, is going too far. It is not impartial, or fair, or balanced. What do you think? Is Ted Kravitz out of line for making provocative statements against Red Bull, or did Max Verstappen and Christian Horner cross the line with how they responded? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell for the hottest F1 news.